Gerald Burns, and I guess his friend Jim Haney.
Yeah. He was talking about, you know, Haney's got these dreams of Portland being this wonderful place, what a foolish thing, and all this kind of stuff. Next thing I knew, Gerald's moving right up behind him. What's that all about?
So she was telling me what a great person Gerald Burns is and telling me I should write him. I actually at one point thought I was going to go to Portland because I'm going to... Did I tell you I was going to be in Bumbershoot?
Yeah.
Well, I thought I might... Dan Raphael called me up and said, you know, I'm doing something too. Can you maybe to stop off on the way? And I said, this is a phone message. So I called him back and I said, yeah, I mean, you know, I can stop off. I'm not driving. And then it turns out what he's doing is the same weekend. And I'm like, well, I can't be in two places at once, Dan. But anyway, so before I knew that, and I thought I might go there, so you know, that's one of the reasons I was asking Sheila. She gave me her, she's like, writes me a letter telling me, oh, he's the most wonderful person, and you know, you got to ride him and everything. And then in the meantime, I found out I wasn't going to Portland, and I get this review. So I just wrote him and kind of, you know, just said, you know, I don't think actually, you know what I said in the letter was, I said, you know, I told him, I said, that I thought that he was actually just trashing his own failure to read my work. I said, you're trashing yourself, actually. Because, you know, what you're reading. Oh, apple pie. My grandfather, okay, to give you an example, my grandfather had an apple pie every day for 30 years of his life. A whole apple pie? Well, I don't know. His wife was still alive, my grandmother. She made about 3 or 4 a week for him. Wow. He died.
He died of it in the end.
And so he was, see, my real situation is not only do I come from the center of America, but I have this, you know, well, what I used to say, to put it bluntly, is I come from a lot of self-righteous. You know, I have this English blood in my father's side of the family, you know. It's like, I admire I was saying to my wife yesterday, I admire you because she has, her father's Irish, her mother's German, and I admire you because you have this mixed blood, and I'm plagued with this, you know, the mixture is there too, but the problem is that it's not as clear of a mixture because I was handed down the thing of the English from my father's side of the family.
In what sense is it true that the pure products of America go crazy?
Increasingly, I'm afraid, David. Yeah? I was just having a discussion about this the other night. I said to Sarah, I said, does it strike you that there are more crazies out on the streets? And I don't just mean homeless. I mean, a lot of it's homeless, but I see people now. I'll be sitting in a coffee place or something. I was sitting in a coffee place yesterday, and I saw this man who probably isn't homeless. I mean, he had clothes on, he looked all right, and he was sitting there with a Bay Guardian, and he was, he had the pen flattened against each sort of taking a pen like this. He very carefully was doing this, taking a pen like this every page like this.
Oh, you're gonna speak? I mean, you could have done some more. You could have done some more.
Did he really? Because he was so intent. He very carefully went through the entire Bay Guardian doing this. You know, and you know, you see something like that. This is just an example, and you notice nobody else noticed it, but I did. I'm like, is he doing anything that makes any rational sense? And I concluded that he wasn't.
I think he might have been speed reading.
I don't think so.
Technique that they teach you to read with.
He wasn't reading
He was sitting there doing that.
He wasn't reading because he was just going the whole page like this. The guy wasn't right. But I mean, anyway, what I was saying to Sarah was, do you think, and maybe you can inform me, because you're older than I am.
We're getting close here.
Well, thank you all for coming this evening to the Johnny Otis Club for our Russian River Writers Guild readings. Maybe I could start off with a few, well, first of all, thanks for waiting so long. All growth is accompanied by pain, and birds of a feather flock together. And it's sometimes better if we have to wait a little bit longer, and you folks have waited long enough. So let me get right on with the show here. Alden Nielsen is going to read this evening, and Spencer Selby is going to read. And Alden is going to read first. We're going to read for 10 or 12. These folks will read for 10 or 12 minutes, and then we'll all take a big break and have some more coffee and refreshments and beer and whatever you're refreshing yourselves with. A.L. Nielsen, UCLA Afro-American Studies Fellow, has poetry books including Heat Strings and Evacuation Routes, which I must say I've been reading myself lately, and I like them very much. This is my copy, but Alden brought a few copies up here, and you might want to take a look at those during the break. His critical work, Reading Race, won the Caden Award. Writing Between the Lines, Race and Intertextuality was just released. He's also the publisher-editor of Lower Limit Speech and the winner of the Larry Neal Award for Poetry. He has poems in Best American Poems and the Gertrude Stein Award Series. Can we please welcome Alden Nielsen?
My name is Alden. I'll be your MC. I thought I'd begin by telling you about our specials. We're offering a delectable theory today. It's brought in fresh from Chesapeake Bay. The chef carefully half-bakes it, and then it's brought directly to your table, stewing in its own juices. We also have the fine figure of a woman with diminished expectations. And finally, for a real treat, I'd like to suggest our special millenarian cold of the day with busting topic served over a chilled apothecary, surrounded by variegated vegetables and smothered in venom. Now, I thought I'd try to do something at the beginning, other than we ever watched. It has something to do with the this is titled Imputation.
Can you hear back there?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Can you hear up there? Imputation. 4 old women getting tanked together slowly in the restaurant, never the bar, which makes it somehow more seemly. That and the whiteness of their polite wine. Their husbands long outlived, loved everyone and not a doubt of it. Not a one but wouldn't prefer hers back and at table with her. But this particular sweetness was never then to be had. The Unfortunate Psychic, based on a British movie that I took to be a comedy, mistakenly apparently. She hadn't expected to be found strangled in her own flat. Neither had she seen coming that falling rod of iron that creased her pensive brow and robbed her, she said, of her abilities, for which she sued the construction company and lost, which was when the quiet man across the way had his big idea. Psychic. I've always wondered about these things. There's every year in San Jose where I teach most of the time, they have a psychics convention. I have no idea why these people have to travel great distances to get together. I don't. American Song Bag. You say Potemkin, and I say potato. You say tomato, and I say tungsten alloy local area networks. Placebo clamato telluric frittata. Let's call the whole thing off. Landfill sites do it. Dual airbags do it. Even animated screensavers do it. Let's do it. Let's fall in love. Hex again, Tex-Mex again. Simulated sheepskin seat covers got wet again, betwixt blathering reunion and lie. Ink blots on car lots and warm summer mittens, calibrated rules, off-site inspections, aluminum siding salesmen all dressed up in mink. These are a few of my favorite things. So let's call the calling off. Great country we live in. This will be my only actually found poem for the evening, transcribed directly from the back of something I picked up on one of my rare incursions into the children's supermarket. Instructions for the magic frog. This product is sticky like the soft rubber. Tongue is extendable, capable of sucking an object at long distance. Even though it is sticky, it, unlike bubble gums, and can be pulled up easily. Wash it by soap in the event of stickiness decreased. The insect picture on the cover can be cut off along the coarse lining and played upon by sticking onto it. It is composed of oil and stain. If stick onto clothes or all the other important matters, it may stain your goods. Pull it backward using both hands, then release. Subsequently, wrist movement must be wide enough. Stretch as if it is fishing rod capable of extending far. It will maintain its original shape no matter how you are going to treat it. Attention, don't throw it out onto people's face. Don't go to places nearby fire. Harmless, but do not eat. Don't pull out its tongue, otherwise it would fall off. I'm going to reserve most of the serious work for the second half. This is titled Halcyon Road. I'd already titled it that when I found myself driving along a road with exactly that name outside of Los Angeles. The politics of some rooms evade use, as this room, transected by want and my own intent, yields nothing that might, by organizing others, provide an outside. There's more room, but there, a weight so massive sits upon us that no one takes notice, goes rather about the crushing business. These next two pieces are composed of a series of very short takes, because that's all I could muster at the time. Institutional memory. There was once a lovely postcard here before that landscape opened. What's that in the corner of the room? The return of content. And that lump under the rug? Palm strips strewn all along the Alameda after a night of unwinding winds. Size has little to say of this, but the surrounding clamor sets off each rounded rise, and the lexicon laid fearfully down around us does, how else can we say it, speak volumes. I know a man who works as a ghostwriter for a syndicated psychic. He opens all her mail and answers it for her. If I set out to read again, will that reading again bring me to you? I can hear the poem in the next room, even when the doors and windows are closed. The symptoms feel their way toward their disease. My soul looks back in wonder how I got over it. Along the Nile, they fret ceaselessly. Who is responsible for these guitar rumors? And now, institutional memory too. The morning after, director's cut. Produced before a live Hollywood audience, portions pre-recorded. Dear occupier, American heritage is as diverse as the American experience. We invite you to try it without obligation. I like long when it's logical. Hardly anything touches the floor anymore. The typewriter trees bent low over the roof. I am addressing the boy in the planetarium. Can anyone here tell me how to become an autodidact? Pine Solus, opera motors, science vehicles only, wash America. How many people remember exactly what they were doing the day before Kennedy was shot? Recovering from an addiction with a panel of experts, Wallace Stevens resolutely refused to repeat the anecdote involving the goats. You can hear those audibles out on the field. He can read Pluto in the original. In the movies, no one has to shout to be heard over the band playing in the nightclub. An Oakland woman is critical tonight. Civil War backlist clowns and a hint of rain towards morning. It takes song to know song. Caution, it is impossible to open this box. In one day's news, Walt Whitman's voice and Amelia Earhart's shoe. Madness is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. An argument for virtual reality. It may become more expensive soon to literally send your kids to school. Reports of low clouds skidded across the horizon. Upon its publication, understanding poetry became an instant Bible for irritating a generation of university students. First, they stripped Frances Farmer of her emotions, and then they gave her a head slap. She is gigantic in the difficulty department. He died of complications. Authorities say vandalism is part of the investigation. The fertilization of frogs' legs in space is a first. Tony the barber has been cutting the hair of the bigwigs for decades. It's no bed of roses being a pillar of the community. Johnson also expanded himself outside the state to other parts of the country. I have to admit I stole that line from a paper my wife was grading. Because I've made it a moral principle never to steal a line from anybody else's papers. With contemporary technology, it is now possible for all of us to say the same thing within seconds. Hi, I'm not an actor, but I play one on television. Severe rest area next 40 miles. Examine serial killers free for 30 days. Double dealing baby brokers. When my stomach was flat, it was empty. The first typewriters were men. He slipped a tape recording of street traffic sounds into his Walkman and clamped his headphones over his ears and set off down the sidewalk. Patsy Cline's critique of humanism and the Cartesian subject. You walk by and I fall to pieces. I'm sorry. He walked out to the driveway and startled his car. Traffic is brought to you by Honda. Thank you.
Thank you, Alden. Those are fun. Some of you folks came here from my encouragement, and I've shown you a book recently, and the next reader, Spencer Selby, is featured in this book, and he's going to come up and do a set of his poetry. Spencer Selby, let's welcome Spencer Selby.
Thank you, Steve, and I'd like to thank everyone for coming and for waiting and have waited long. I especially want to thank anyone who's not here if they're on free will.
Can we hear that?
No. All right. I want to thank anyone who's not here if they're on free will, and release you at this moment. You know, you really not release because it's in my power.
I can't decide.
I can't myself really understand why anyone would want to listen to poetry reading of their own free will. I'm not objective about that.
I think it was fate.
Huh?
It was fate.
Fate. That's a good explanation. It really is. I like fate. But I can't help thinking, you know, when you think of fate, it's like, I don't know, maybe because I got started out with movies, so when I think of fate, I always think of some old Fritz Lang movie or something. You know, I can't think of real life. Of course, literary people that I know, when they think of fate, they have some intricate concept that evokes German philosophy or something. I don't know much about German philosophy, so. But I know that fate is passe, no matter whether you're associated with movies or German philosophy. Maybe German philosophy is passe. I don't really have any funny poems to read, so that's why I'm writing. I left my funny poems at home. So I'm going to read some serious ones. The first one is called Crevice. Content opening and keeping something larger denotes inward stain. So slow when past the threshold assimilated back to view a dark named alternate silence. Have measure attentive in the keyhole, straight pre-verbal made present in the time of the poem's argument with words that stand for immediate. Tears think twice around this unacknowledged paradox. Resemble, pursue, diverse strategy to get things said against what is missing from the bottom upwards. Float vengeance needs pronouncing worldly bones in the catastrophic period altered not enough. Memorial of burned feet dredges up clashing secrets at the outer reaches of looking differently at the evidence. Written state speaks grand permission, partly lost in a forest or jungle. Desperate raining tears from untoward strength that thought to exist apart and love every current mode of address. Temptation situates here whose piercing thought breaks off in midstream, which has no need of something visible. Wishborn subject taking a chance with tomorrow's inability to separate life from an ancient problem. Naked matter, home a threat, for the innocent victim standing in a shadow I think about constantly. Saying I do and I don't in relation to language surrounded with the infinite. A world of good examples depending upon what used to be irrelevant. Speech serves temple of darkness so much satisfied by an outside embryonic experience. Full force burning pale, as the beauty which may or may not fit this landscape will never look the same. Words I imagine being still, from going dead to life of the answer, where forgotten daylight keeps things moving in a way that doesn't show itself till the end. This piece is called Treatment. This might be about contemporary America in a kind of veiled way. Blink of an eyelid calling forth a different meaning as response to prevailing forces. The subject taken by surprise, covering proof against behavior we have glorified in dreams that exist only where there is strife, violence, and consumption. In every quarter we find continual counterpoint between the uproar of containment of a battle that never changed anyone. The full range of choices has failed in its movement through a vacuum that by now is quite notorious. Well, I know all about it, they will tell you, and then the world grows dark with reasons which are used to separate this part of the story from almost everything. To fight for more and settle for less is the way we've come. Not dead, but sleeping with shadows spilling from deep inside the labyrinth. Play the game, don't play the game, all the same it had to happen. The way of action got stuck on the path of least resistance. All roads led to a tunnel in the middle of something obvious. Thwarting minds to keep in view a question streaming back from here and now. Is there some way that I can move this light up? It's like either I put my poems down here and they're too far away, or I put them up here and then there's no light on it. Now, I mean, this is really a problem.
The light gets...
It's not funny, you know?
It gets hot that way.
No, I just want to be able to see my poems when I put them up here.
But you clip it,
If I put them down here, it's like,
flip it to the...
you know, what I thought of before is I thought I could take the pages out and I could be like Al, right? But have you ever tried to take your pages out of these composition things? It's like they're held in there like with a vice. That's all right. Don't worry about it. Reading my poems in the dark is, it's very metaphorical. I know. We could have Steve just stand here. I'd like that. I would. That's fine. That's good. Thank you. Thank you.
As long as it lasts.
Are my 10 minutes up yet? This piece is called Discovery. A suspicious dark suit that in this age of low culture will be permitted to do nothing else. Man in religious photograph waving at a serpent on the edge of poor attention. Primitive light source in the left hand of a poet who doesn't know how to write. Mythology as discipline for response. This poem's kind of funny. I mean, brutal environment lacking love to the degree of being crippled. Movement stolen back in the big Paris church, still exhausted by a hidden memory. Colors everywhere around the neck. Experience glorified without an excuse for present meaning. Subject author saying the truth did other things on the bridge created by a demolition expert. No one nowhere ever since. Like discovery of modern ship sinks every minute. Ditto voice, illuminated night, developed brain to hinder a much better tragedy than this. Alright, one more. And then everybody goes and buys espressos. This piece is called What For? Passage rarefied does not lead a certain prejudice from belaboring what's important. Either by land or by ice, the story gets sidetracked. Quality of remoteness, memory of severance, transient awareness to distinguish between suffering and the perilous plunge from a world of static hope. Floor-to-ceiling mirror, given and then rejected by all who've lost their substitute for innocence. Written in blood by a reckless groping for personal advantage. Taken for granted beyond limits, mistaken for reality. Released across the country by a crooked instinct that was never more appropriate. Brought down in the current, counterpoint yawning ever wider through an eruption of fire, burning the social body with nothing but veiled truth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Spencer Selby. Let's have another hand for Spencer Selby and Alvin Nielsen. And now let's follow Spencer's directions and go help ourselves to the espresso bar. And then we'll start again in 15 or 20 minutes.
Really? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I
Spencer Selby is a replacement this evening, actually, for Craig Hill, and we're pretty fortunate that he was able to come up here in the nick of time for me, because I had to find somebody to replace Craig Hill, who moved up to Washington recently, and that's why Craig Hill isn't here this evening. Spencer wanted me to present him as a troublemaker.
I don't think you have to do that.
And yeah, well, that's exactly it, I guess.
That's not what I said.
Well, he said something like
I
that.
said
I might have.
the best introduction anybody ever did was when they introduced me as a troublemaker. I said, you can do that.
Oh, okay.
You know, if you're going to introduce somebody as a troublemaker, you don't say, they wanted me to introduce them as a troublemaker. That wrecks the whole impact, Steve. God. Now, see, here I go, making trouble.
Making trouble.
I don't even think I have to explain any of that. I guess it was, I didn't introduce him as a troublemaker, so he got up here and he started giving me stuff about the light. But you know what? We never would have known about this light, and now we have it fixed. We can do this forever. We've had a problem with this light for a long time. Now we know what to do with it. You know what? I have to stand on my tippy toes in order to reach the mic here.
No, you can reach up with your hand and turn it down.
Oh, well, I don't want to mess anything up here. It's liable to all fall apart. Spencer's books, let me give you a little list of some of the books that Spencer has published. He's published In Star by Sync Press, and he used to do a magazine called Sync. In fact, I have a couple copies of that myself at home. His second book was Barricade, and his third book was House of Before in 1991. His latest book, he has a few copies for us here if anybody's interested, and it's called sound off, Spencer Selby, and he's going to come up and do another set for us. We welcome Spencer Selby again.
Piece is called Possession. Tale of wicked dawn, outside image weapon, makes me accomplished, consent ravenous. Narcotic asserting, furtive and vocal, given to like advantage. Enduring the day, the mind, the house scattered dark room speech. Covenant no way obscure, paradise hollow dream in suicide past. Strike bulging maze, said generation now almost sky fear abandoned one another. Eat matter in public intimate. Rage stone not look force, within killing words, broken, cutting, burning, between your millions hidden and paid for empty. Written with a shut door, spinning faster body, to inhabit when I'm out in the cold or stuck in midway country. Put down drop ever wealth, return yours foothold, foreign music, lost on such deep liquid. Heaven sent ground motive, blazing shell, street current, hand in the way of desire becoming helpless. Rain over miracle sign, needle facing inward light, mountain roots of power finds me more at the start. This piece is called Relic. I find the whole idea crystallized out of talking about denominator versus society, missionary appeal similar to the cooling so few people have felt that serves as only a relic can understand. Bizarre movement toward darkness, dreaming night can pass through what's motivating purpose and tribulation trying so hard to wake everyone up. Spoken language far older when I think to say I've got the story wrong. Not signify a kind of mental field over and above experience taken with water distilled from or tapping into diurnal resonance of high-speed illusion of control and dominance. Better concrete surface can't see through a metaphor stretched in being stared at on that royal road I find meets current vision, filling the void between one body and another. Auric field curiously designed before trading reality as someone else's art. Crude spark necessary by dissolving line of influence that is wrong about what tomorrow must give up. Part of people not explored, like colorless, tasteless liquid, spreads far and wide, with childhood written on clumsy material. The other part grown tired of, survival seems a word like cobweb or payload, makes the inner search fall flat. For this I know and cannot question. Words as things is wonderful only in detail that gets lost in cold weather removed, brought back by quirky music. The snow comes down under a single cloud on the brink of motion. My lips turn serious, and then it takes all winter to admit the question changed while I was out. This piece is called Close. Be held close in an ordinary piece of raindrops inside the shadow. Exact pours to one another that looked like vertical, menacing, caught on a stone-faced word. Deserted line may surface if a better critic talks about what happened. Safe as it appears, but in reality has another origin. Deeper than their lives, accurate to present prophecy. strike benefit through glass, justified in assuming false promises will not be able to change direction. Look close, endangered earth. Math stop halfway, payment foolish boundary, authentic, imaginary, dead flower shape and sequence. Entered a point in the story of head downward, examination all over, play faculty to itself deceptive, wrong for believing a world in love with that. This is a piece that's called News. I worked on this piece for like 3 years. I mean, the piece was written in one day, and then for 3 years I some kind of parody of a romantic poet who spends his whole life trying to figure out the exact right words in a poem. I pulled my hair out. I was like, every day I'd wake up and I'd say, what is the matter with this poem? And I didn't know. It took me 3 years to figure it out. And now that it's done, it's like a letdown, because it's like, it's not that great. I mean, it's not a masterpiece or anything. So why did I even bother?
You wanted a romantic experience.
Yeah. Then the worst part was, in the interim between the time when I wrote the first version and the time that I ended up having the last version, there were several intermediate versions. And one of the intermediate versions I sent to an editor, and he took it for his magazine. And then when I finished it and I wrote it back, the magazine hadn't appeared yet, and I said, well, the poem is really done now, and this is the way it should be, which was really only the last couple lines that were changed. And he wrote me back and he said, damn, I like the way it was before. And it's like, I told him he could publish it any way he wanted, because it wasn't a masterpiece either way. Poets, they spend a lot of time arguing, at least some of the ones that I know, arguing all these intricate theories of poetics and everything, and arguing about their taste of what is a good poem, and who's the best poet, and who's crummy poet, and who likes who, and it all gets all mixed up. And so, to me, it's like I just come into some of these discussions and I mean, this wouldn't be the only thing that I would say, but I mean, the way I feel about it is I just say, well, all I want to do is write one good poem in my whole life. I mean, I know that sounds really romantic. I mean, how could you be a poet and not be that romantic about it? That's the way I feel. That's the way I feel about the other poets, even though they won't admit that's what they're doing. They want to write good books. They want to write a whole good body of work. I'm like, geez, isn't that an awful lot to want? How many poets succeed in doing that? Nobody seems to know. Yeah. People think they know, but nobody really does know. Maybe Steve's covered this stuff in his class. If he hasn't, I think he should. This piece is called News. News of your dilemma drop names in accordance with each part played in the process of changing into something left unsaid. Inside and Out was certain to make you nervous when so many had decided not to spread themselves where they weren't wanted. One target too many became the only thing that people noticed when you entered the room. In the corner unacknowledged, a hidden passage came and went before the truth of your experience could look up from its newspaper and make itself known. Composite portraits fell apart when critical reaction left without saying a word about the circumstance of your victory within defeat. More than that and less is where you've been while changing costumes and getting difficult from then to now. The only way you'll fill in the blank is cutting across the boundary of an unsympathetic response. Bridged to be a verdict, talking about the incapacity of words to say what they've created. An iridescent light spread mostly forward and back, filling a need down below that starts a new world every minute, taking untold present wonder for a loss.
Did you really like it?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're lying. I don't believe you. This piece is called Craft, and it was originally a prose poem. And the reason it was a prose poem was because I didn't write it as a poem. I wrote it as a statement for a publication that's done by some young poets in Buffalo called Poetics Briefs. And they have this policy which is, well, they want to talk all about poetry, and they want to publish poets, and they want to put all kinds, but they don't want to publish actual poetry. Well, of course, anybody who knows anything about modern poetry knows that, I mean, how do you distinguish what it is? Is it written in verse form? Is it prose? What is it? Well, you don't know. I mean, anything can be poetry, that's what I say. The form of it doesn't matter anymore. At least that's the way I think of it. But they had this thing. They wanted to publish only, and they still do. They don't want to publish verse poetry, so it has to be prose. So what I did was, I didn't know I was doing this. I mean, I suppose I was cheating because I wrote the piece that's prose, and they published it, and I changed it to verse. So now it's in the verse form. It's called Craft. I mean, that's really not what happened, because when I changed it to verse, I changed the piece too. You know, so it wasn't really that I was just. Although in a way it was, because I was inspired to write the piece because they invited me. They were talking about. It was an actual. What they do is they have subjects that they discuss in this little publication, and the subject they were discussing was, what is the state of the avant-garde? Sounds ominous, doesn't it? Well, the state of the avant-garde is ominous. The piece is called Craft. Sounds the death knell preeminent phase out between beliefs. Divergent is stalled on a corpse. Escape revolt passage defeating claims absorbed by zero silence. Desire involves spectrum to the last unpopular effective discourse. Pure protest or poisonous refusal. Valid margin or closed-off diagnosis that the patient always sought. Locked here in situ to operate the phantom limb. Attack so radical endemic character. Debate resource advance against reality. Show victim of history flesh and weapons about to be shed. Such would be our logic, using a self-consuming model instead of a threat. Strength present we have now, expressing exhaustion, reflection, perfusion throughout an entire economy. Dark meaning as a miracle anticipated and done in by device. Joint vectors that generate more space in the desert frame withdrawal from both directions at once. Search program for an end for perception positive afterlife career. Sign commerce held hostage and embarrassed by an argument no longer made. Mark question means a difference. Cast shadow ruins against museum performance. Create deny this culture whose development is a myth. I don't know how long I've read or what my time is, but I have this one little bit longer piece.
About 10-15 minutes.
Well, I'll read this and then
Or longer.
All right, well, I'm going to read this piece, which will take, I don't know, it won't take 10 minutes. It might take 7 or 8 minutes, and then we'll see if there's any room for me to read after that. But this piece is called The Hunger. And it's dedicated to my wife, Sarah O'Mara. My hard vision as water veiled a curtain of sea. Well, I might as well tell the truth about this. This was it was written for a compilation for a guy up in Portland who his name is Thomas Taylor, and he wanted to do something different from doing the magazine. So what he's doing is, well, I think he's still doing it. He's done 2 of them. He does these like books, and they each have a theme. And the first one was called The Why Project. And so I guess everybody was writing poems and doing art about why. You know, very open-ended. And then the second one, I didn't know about that one. So I found out about it when he was doing the second. It was called The Love Project. So I
he had some kind of invitation. He sent it out, and I received this thing that had some whole postmodern twist on love or something. And I'm like, I said to myself, I'm not going to respond to this because I don't think of myself as writing love poems. And I thought about it for a couple of weeks, and I thought, gee, maybe that's why I should respond to it, just because I have the impulse not to want to do it. So that's what I did, and this poem was the result, called The Hunger. And of course, it was a love poem I had to dedicate to my wife. My beautiful wife, who is not here, but she is one in a million because she lives with me and puts up with me. Well, that's not the only reason. I hope. Piece is called The Hunger. My heart vision as water veiled a curtain of sea, looked with anonymous all-around direction, groundless walls, listening far beyond reach, sounds searching, troubled memories, pounding, swimming, errant vantage came to a different account. Human bones worship eyes like the crush of own weight, feeling out voyages on this sudden attitude current, transmitted through lives, loves, words, mingling, touching, holding, covering cold heat, naked obstacle, being abandoned, being caught by caress of volume, absorbed and lost within the flow of movement, desire more curious than thought. I was thrown up on the rock. I was falling in between, not knowing whether I would be strong enough on a layer of night. I was stuck, then turned the earth over on its side, with such a stare flickering in the brilliant moment I want made quickly into a person I can share my solitude with. A chance, this was a chance, like the imprint of her face. She moved as if aware, and there was something ebbing back to sea. Her dress danced while the music was lost in the sound of arms, of chairs, of curtains around her neck. Machinery made imminent changed her luck, blinded her in a mirror past self. The people she had known, the men she had loved, following a script not revealed yet. Chattering my mind, caught looking at the mask of her face, the eyes I would see through if I were an idol like she is. I wrote with the yielding of that woman. I carved her men's image, her eyes not men's, of the poison of legends failed to engulf themselves. I wished to forget it was not her that I challenged that night. The stones on her forehead, the sweetness burned with smoke of her perfume, the matter in frames and fire scent signal we hardly recognized. Her breath, my reason, my pulse, her motion, my apparent boyhood, her distantly remembered lust, my rockets, my road, my jungle, swallowed messages given by her with a dark red smile on her lips. The bed was floating, we were on it together, moving slowly across. I was carrying so much weight for a while, and the cards fell out of her pocket. Then the ashes of something burned through both of us. The fever of her embrace, the thought of my body close to her body, the knowledge of some connection, some passage in the sun and light, the books and dream, the serpent shadow following both of us. I speak to you whose beauty is mine if I let it be so, whose fire is mine if I am strong enough to nourish the illusion that there is no difference. Your golden thread leads from me to an enclosure where we slept one night. Your impression that the world is a ghost surrounding a window we both look out of. Your light that we undress in. Your voice from song of secret sentiment. Your choice to become what you are not. Your fears that are perfectly uncertain. Your love soon enough excluded from the passions we can't remember. It will be me if you are lost, and it will be you if I am burned. My hand grabs your world. The sun shows two faces, two qualities that have been scattered on the other side of a room where we struggle and live. I am that, and you are this, which is the twofold evolution. The eyes, the arms, the rhythm, the breath, and all that my language cannot currently accept. I am sick with these words that have not the power of another medium where we are content. I am thinking this life-death is not what it was. I am going to meet the wall, the twins that may be us, that may be others. I am aware there is something more terrible. There is a question pulling at you. There is a vacuum pulling at me. There is a moment when we have passed beyond the ordinary gray covers of the world, smoking sulfur immensity of defects, smallness of this room, largeness of this circle, above laughter, tears, rain, and brains, that keeps things moving even when the lungs are constricted. It's not over yet. You're not supposed to clap until it's over.
It's over.
Really?
That one was.
All right. Well, then why am I bothering with the rest?
For more class.
All right. I am here and the cries are not. They are me, but they are not here. They are scattered spirits, they are nights suspended. They are streams of liquid fire, of love divided. They are a city where each house stands in the same place. They are an island deadened by pain. They are a motive bristling with fury, ageless, trembling, not able to end the hunger for a freedom not felt. We contemplate this sentence in a country filled with mountains, which are also echoes that travel from room to room. Many rooms have windows which must be expressed as something else. Many thoughts are what we see through those windows. Many fears are what we do not see through those windows. Many dreams are what would be necessary were we to avoid the determination of those windows. We look away in one of the rooms. We look away from the windows and we look toward each other. We behold two lives, two candles, burning in a forest of division, crying, laughing, searching for an answer surrounded by lies. This was supposed to be a story of our love, and this was supposed to be a pattern we could recognize. This was supposed to be an area great enough to believe and small enough to grasp. This was supposed to be an ecstasy, a tenseness, a firmament of full prophetic meaning shining across the night. I looked back and I felt that it had failed. My thought was incapable of changing for that one moment, and that one moment was what I was expressing. There was an explosion which was always almost happening, and which has happened, but the moment of its actual occurrence was impossible to touch or feel. That exact moment was never there. And still and yet I know there was a solution passing between us then. Is that enough time? 25 minutes. Okay.
I like that one. Thank you, Spencer Selby. Let's have another hand for Spencer Selby. Alden Nielsen's going to come up and read again, and but before he does, let me say that Alden does a radio program, poetry interviews and I think poetry readings on Thursday nights. Alden, a San Jose radio station. They want to catch that on a Thursday night sometime, about what, 7 or 8, 9 o'clock? 6 o'clock actually.
We do things early in San Jose.
They do things early in San Jose.
What's the call?
90.7.
90.7 FM. That would be a good place to catch some experimental poetry and poetry discussions, I think. So let's have a hand for Alden Nielsen.
No, do it now. Oh, I should do it now. Yeah.
Read my poems.
Actually, yes, I'm going to read your poems, Alden, and I'm also going to put in a little plug for myself and for Stephen Farmer, who will be reading. We'll be reading next week, next Monday at 8 o'clock, sharp, sort of. San Francisco Poetry Time. And Stephen Farmer was a classmate of mine about 10 or 12 years ago, and David Bromwich's, one of David Bromwich's classes at Sonoma State, and David will be hosting, so we could have a little fun next week. Elton.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, I wasn't going to start with this, but I will now. This is titled Half a Poem for David Bromwich, which was written while I was flying from San Jose, California to Louisville, Kentucky. And it's half a poem because when I got to Louisville, I had to stop it. Half a poem for David Bromwich. No one can tell you not to listen. With half an eye to fate, another half occluded. Anyone had half a heart would hear what snow amounts to above a city's profits. An attendant, face angled into light as she lifts into heaven ahead. She loves to hear him whisper solipsism in her ear. Pressure we share attendant upon a rising. A mother draws 4 of each for her 2 children who persist in saying 7. Sentences take more time. As our shadow across snow flying etches. Casebook Cantata, Part 1. Begin reading here. A man walked to the witness stand and asked if he would be willing to testify that punctuation had here first appeared. There had to be a place for it if he were to witness it all at all. Program music. The audience was visibly arriving at a quite different conclusion. Conducting itself was in question. That the composition was gang-related could not be doubted. The witness stood in the witness stand while all about him were losing theirs. The law arrives with its apparatus. The music rises in lawful air. The witness didn't believe his ears. The biographies thickened. Their incensed authors having abandoned sex for the talk show circuit. The non-sequiturs changed their minds in unison and stood to be counted as one. The music swelled, its strains filling the witness with an erotic grief which would one day be noted by his biographer, who long ago had left behind the rhythmic liberties of prose for the pose of disinterested meters. Part 2. Accuracy in perpetuity. Armor was designed to allow people to go into the world. She had never seen a spoon warmer before and didn't know where to put the christening book. She had a clock, and there was a bicycle, and she could rotate them if she had a laser printer. There is no logic because she asked her boss. That's probably why it's so easy for him. She thought all she had to do was to hit the picture, but there were 4 pictures. She didn't hit it right to get all 4. They're supposed to turn blank, you know, and then you pull them down and put them in the trash can. That's not hell. It's only purgatory. It's still in the trash can, but you can get it back. You have to quit first before you can do anything else. Then you can get the stars with the happy faces. She said, just put the fish on and be done with it. It was an iconic poem, A Duck in Las Vegas. Remember the day we all decided to make graphic a noun? The order is then sent to the appropriate distributor in the outside world, who will send it to the requester of the item. This will affect the translation between the file access protocols required by differing client operating systems. A sending or receiving party is a person. In order to communicate fully, the user needs a user agent. This leads to the imposition of user-friendly fees. Part 3. Wigwam evenings. Money lends itself to abuse. I, like a river. To throw yourself in the water, I was saying. Are you going to bring that up again? Are you going to throw that cab driver in my face? Part 4. But, as a result of a big bad negotiation, in 1976, we lost the language. Part 5. Today is manuscript day. This next piece, in honor of our locale here tonight, it was not written in honor of Johnny Otis because he's only one of about 5,000 people who recorded Caledonia, but this is titled Caledonia Softens. We've beaten the ornery hours down between us. Their gold teeth spill onto the floor, rattling for the corners. Yesterday the wolf took his tickets and ran. That thing that kept jumping up in our business, raising sand, collapsed last week. Its wife came for the hog maws this morning. Now it's just you and me, Caledonia. Caledonia. And that old at last that's got up next to S. It unclasps the bitter necklace from around your throat. It whistles lead belly between the lips of the bedroom door. And what made your big head so suddenly doesn't seem to be such a burning question anymore. Dripping ignorant oil by the dim light of a neck bone, I wonder why I've never noticed the dream book pages you've plaited into your hair. You shake your head, slowly clicking new beads together, and I see in that shimmer of glass an end of numbers. You pull me down with you onto the buffalo grass mat that old at last has laid out for us, and just before the walls come tumbling down, I hear you singing, "Work with me, baby, work with me." The vociferant. A concept of grace appeared quaking in the sunlight, crushing local color. A figure rose against the horizon, fitting itself exactly to its contours. The words gather between us, even as we speak. The devil we know gets even better. The difference. My mother said, when she was in school, that algebra problems never ended in an unknown. Never letters left in the answer. Only integers, hard and whole. This piece appears in the most recent Talisman. It's titled "A Good Place to Raise a Boy," and because they've had occasion to change their slogan, I should mention that when I was in fact a boy, that was the slogan of Birmingham, Alabama. A good place to raise a boy. A river, rising gorge, a bridge, law, bodies of floating, beaten, what a mob means, common measures, which ensure a further presence, whatever force to be effective, applied against an ugliness so massive, deliberate, speeding for betrayal, till, floating, unrecognizable, save by his ring. Or children flaming in an Alabama basement, their Bibles no protection against their countrymen. In the magic city, the capacious real burns through faith and natural language against a cross of eyes on, hands on, the color of man and woman, the color of right, not from any near, but silent and involutive, the complexion of the end of the century, always time to die, always this sentence, hidden amongst the letters. There are those who stay behind, and we write to them there now, and send money to come here, but they stay there and save it. This is titled Brancusi's Duty. Those of you who are familiar with Brancusi's sculptures know that, as Dave once told me, that's back when minimalism was big. The occasion for this has to do with the shipment of one of Brancusi's shiny metal cubes into the United States for display. The customs agents confronted with this glittering cube weren't sure how to classify it, but they decided in the end that it was unimproved metal and therefore subject to certain import duties. Brancusi's Duty. Who should pay it? Metal shape brought up from the breast of romance. Whose duty? Whether metal so improved to commerce should be taxed in expectation of further improvements. This praise could have been about you and your sunburned faith. Some custom of the country to collect, to breathe together against you. Art, deprived by its room, fills it in revenge, as any evasion eventually gives up its evidence against an artless wall. An urgent and impossible search for such distinction as another space might lend, a work whose workings are not in evidence. Who should own this orphan? Should lend it credence? Such a hard word to break a law. In our minds it begins to darken. The gleam of your intended shape obscured against our thought, that most perfect metaphor writing a cube, a shape that comes to resemble the space that it fills, attracting a plethora of small narratives that wrap themselves around reshaping themselves and fraying in corners. A defense against plundered sights. This is not the law. This is an extraction against useful manufactures on the outskirts of some restless checkpoint, an average ago.
Sorry.
It's just, I Well, I was expecting a call. Life insurance sales?
That's Brad Cousy on the line.
Yeah, no, tell him no anchovies. My mind is filled with my new apartment, which is vacant. My phone doesn't ring there. It's one of those things, just one of those things I can't hold a candle to. The insides of my empty icebox glow in their enclosure in self-contained glee. Between me and the world, there is this address where friends can't find me, on a broken box where no letters lie. The swimming pool, which is not behind my building, slowly fills with solid snow. It is such a hard place I live in that I must maintain this other, open place as a rock to root around in. There where my calls come to nothing, I am not required to speak of a place in order not to live there.
The telephone was orchestrated to that moment.
You know, I'm so obvious, I told him to make that call already. That's why I had to watch it. Okay, here, we'll go back to another cafe poem. It's disappeared from this book.
Does it have a telephone?
All of my poems have telephones in them. My dinner with Andrea. It was an elevator, she swore. A small bald man came with dinner. We sent him back to the chef. How many languages do you speak? I asked. She didn't seem to understand. I have often ignored your Edgar Allan Poe, she ventured, with a pensive gesture towards the lobby. I couldn't help noticing that the lobsters here had no rubber bands. The bees in my country are the size of butterfly shrimp, she went on, raising a handful of them to her lips. It is what we are chiefly known for, you see, that and the loveliness of our leeks. You have nothing that can match that. Lakes, I corrected her. One's likes or dislikes have little to do with it, actually, she went on, after staring for some moments into her finger bowl. One is simply boned through where one is till it can no longer be taken. This is something you should have learned from your experience last year in the urine. The Urals, I corrected. You Americans have so little subtlety of expression. Why, at home, 2 or 3 days may transpire before the entire import of one's declarations become evident. That is what accounts for our history of peace and our stable population. You cannot imagine the munificence of our Miss Crystals. Her speech had wearied me, but her foot was having the opposite effect. She had hooked it around my leg under the table. Leaning closer so that I could smell the Bavarian cream on her breath, she whispered, "After the desert, I shall take you on the elevator and below your head." Escalator, I insisted. I'll just read a couple of pieces here. Actually, I'm going to read a poem by somebody else. I've been doing a lot of work this year on poets who have been, for the most part, forgotten, who I think need to be republished. One of them just has been republished, Stephen Jonas, an irascible, despicable human being who wrote beautiful poetry and some despicable poetry. All of the samples of both of which have been gathered together in the selected poems of Stephen Jonas just recently. This poem had several different titles before it wound up in his book, with the title of which I just forgot. Originally this poem was titled Axel Point. Oh, Exercises for Ear, that's where it finally wound up. When the old measure's gone, and the new stresses feet, though the heart stagger and the head be still, still let the feet go, black and bare, let them go, black and bare, let them go. I'm going to read just one excerpt from Evacuation Routes, which I brought along in memory of Craig Hill, who was kind enough to publish it. Craig actually asked me for manuscripts without ever having met me, which is unusual in this day and age. So I appreciated it greatly. I'm going to read a longer part of it and then a shorter part. The valuable thing about this book is it's actually quite useful for a book of poetry because it shows you how to get from one place to another. Although it won't do you any good where we are right now because it's or Maine. But for the really important parts of the country like Iowa City, Grand Island, Nebraska, Route S. Shango, what it must be to be a fact, an iron will, a steam iron will, a pleat in general knowledge along which grime gathers, iron need in the library, seated by the Lexus, crisscrossing traffic between the stacks, from reference to restrooms, out of catalogs, out of literature, German, out of poetry, a database, out of order, built upon the pulsing of human flight, the seats in the center facing outward as in an outmoded bus station channeling the movement in the various disciplines. Serial murderers with short memory spans were laid across the river at several points to facilitate the crossing. After successful pregnancy has occurred, donors are cut off, wondering why they paid more for gas in March than in February. Provocative late-night adult entertainment. The Mardi Gras beads can be had for free, yet with the addition of a simple metal clasp, many paid for them. Oh, gun. Serious rubbernecking delays were caused by the terrorist attack this morning. My walking memory is not remarkable. Reporting from someplace in your house, it had become increasingly difficult to pen well-formed letters. His weight loss first became noticeable in his wrists. What we had all assumed were mild earth tremors proved upon closer examination to be concerted efforts to alter our view of ourselves. The age bore the stamp of his intellect, and men go abroad to admire the heights of mountains. The door to the Red Lion opened onto a wintry afternoon. Everywhere the obvious was becoming more so. If I remember correctly, the mountains vanished. If I fail to remember correctly, there was a time when mountain regions were considered to be unhealthy. Today, the Federal Trade Commission approved the biggest murder in U.S. corporate history, Heidegger on the horizon, core memory. On giveaway night, the price for children was raised $2. After the game, they could be seen streaming from the stadium, waving their green fingers in the Baltimore air. Rumors circulated freely to the effect that there was an old man in the next county who had never made reference to a single chart, a breathing space for lip readers. That night, he had received a call from a gentleman conducting a survey on the use of women's products, but he couldn't remember at the time if Samoyeds were some kind of dog food or chocolatey Girl Scout cookies. The students piped. The prices of our books increased in inverse proportion to the length of the sentences inside them. Vile footage. They dropped Whitman's brain. If lacking furniture, erasers, or chalk, call for other maintenance. Potomac flamenco. I have pre-stressed this text. This, then, will have been a crook. From the cows burning in stray trees. If you leave out his personal life, he was a happy man. His motivation was to help burn victims. His motivation was to help burn victims. On those few occasions when he found it necessary to go to the bathroom in somebody else's house, he would aim his stream carefully down the curve of the ceramics, just above the water line, to lessen the level of appreciable sound, not wanting to disturb anyone more than absolutely required. An episode in history. I went to the dentist to have my old filling replaced, and his restroom was under construction. It was reminiscent of the time a tonsillectomy was performed upon me with only partial success. It could have been so much worse. In Mexican prisons, you have to purchase from the outside not only your drugs, but your meals, toothpaste, toilet paper, and dental floss. When he pressed his ear against her breast, he could hear the scaly wings beating up and down inside. I was surprised upon entering the bookstore to find the cashier reading a volume of poetry that I had not yet written. How a magazine comes about, perfect bound. Did I get that last thought from the serious notebook? He punctuated his silence with groans. Mango, nothing better than eating a piece of. He and she were characters from an earlier work discarded when it was discovered. The rise and fall of the mind and the act of bobbing like a lure. Elsewhere, I am writing a poem about Abby Lincoln. Images understood to be vehicles of analogical revelations occurring in a flash, like an Edsel that bursts into flames. 2 Edsels in one night, I didn't like that. Like an Edsel that bursts into flames in your driveway one night during dinner when men fail to call things by their right names. Higher, the handicapped. It is a mirror which, when held up to a mirror, persists in showing some dumb lamp. Essay on inappropriate. We allowed ourselves to be explained. Oh, be my moving object in the designated light. Persephone was not aligned with Shaken. I am the object of this sentence. This one is yours. Brutal compliments met each succeeding performance, nasty, brutish, and short. Isoglosses for gunny sex, multitudes of maltons. Your items may have shifted during the flight. He tries to remember his first watch. Size diminished in relation to distance. There's weather in Dallas. No one to drive the car. He said, Juanita was arrested on the threshold by what she saw. Valerie's diminished alphabet, missing its rarest letters. The cowboy who wrote it dead. Every day I receive letters from numerous lawyers. It pleases me to be able to provide suitable employment for so many. The president's lawyer writes to tell me the symbolism is important. The afternoon Michelle DeGee spent in Annapolis was the same day I drove with my brother up to my brother-in-law's place on the water after a long night of work. The two of them went sailing while I went into town for beer and pizza and discovered the annual clam festival was in full swing. The crowd around the pier was too thick, so I ducked quickly into a nearby bar, nearly bowling DeGee over in the process, and ordered 2 dozen. They were served in a cup that appeared to have been saved from a trip to some local short-order restaurant, and hanging over the cup's lip were bristling what I took to be tails. I had never seen clams in this state before. I had first eaten them in New York, where they'd been served clean, steamed, and buttered by the dozen. I soon found that these tail-like objects were ideal for grasping between my finger and its opposed thumb, and made short work of my order. DeGee was still on the street when I left. Back at my brother-in-law's, we ate 2 large pepperonis with the works and drank a case of beer before starting back for D.C., where I was soon due back on my night shift. From all of this, Michel de Guy derived a lovely poem in prose, and I a stomachache. This is the true story of my stomachache. About halfway through the darkness, I had to ask my brother to pull over the shoulder so that I could lurch out of the car and over the guardrail. Categories for experience coding. As I heaved into the grass, I recalled with some delectation the alphabets of Holmes' main syllable, where the B sucks, there suck I. Valenzuela's alphabet concluded unexpectedly in the 4th month with dysentery. Feeling somewhat revived, I proceeded to the Africa of Abish. Rising refreshed, I stumbled back through the throughway towards the stubble. Route B. This is in a more lyric mode, and it has a contemporary resonance to it. Route B. Barney Miller, Barney Fife, Barney Rubble. Well, I only have time for a couple of short things instead of that long philosophical poem I was going to read.
Going to write, too, right?
Oh, yes, I meant to write that at the end. Shucks. No, I'm doing that paper shuffling I promised Spencer that I would only do during his part of the reading. Let's go down to the sea. What for, pussy? Are you going to use him for a rattlebox? I want to make him happy. She was the absolute bond slave of the ought. Whenever we stopped anywhere, she would buy some more of whatever it was. Such needments as could be arranged in the smallest compass. The group that stood in various attitudes were worthy of a painter. The traces of a rood leading up among them were likely and fat, where that little bark had gone down, dragging in a small palliasse over which she had spread linen cloths wet with cold. Try, my poor fellow, to roll yourself onto this. He looked out his baggage and gathered his little party. Most doleful and lugubrious sounds proceeded from it. This burst of feeling made a moment's blank pause. Thank you.
Thank you again, Alvin Nielsen and Spencer Selby. And thank you all for coming this evening. Maybe we'll see you next week. Have a good night.
Thank you, Steve. With the endless qualification of things, and I wondered if you'd ever tried a piece that worked like that. With the qualification. You know, like, well, I'll just qualify this remark once, and then I get it. I don't know what applies the time to do it.
So there might be some thing with
I don't mind reproducing if they don't mind.
Yeah.
If they don't mind it already, now that just
New Orleans and
if they don't, I'm not rights wise on the one shot deal.
I'm like,
the art museum just opened up.
publish the same thing.
Hey, Bill?
And they've got a whole section of the chairs. Yeah, and it's fun. It's very lyrical and very fun. You know, you can see
Because I know chairs are like stuff.
different things. I mean, they're just like,
Yeah, you get your rights like that. And then I came here and there's chairs.
it's like, it's a half, this is a half happening. There's these young art students and stuff doing the chairs. I saw them out in, they had a artist out there working at the Longview Garden. They were out there making the chairs and doing his and it was fun watching just like get these ideas of doing these things. The chairs are almost like
Did they have, did any of them like, as here we have, people, they were white chairs.
yeah, but the chair, no, they had things like putting all the others going to the days and all of
Like my shirt, like,
you know, like your chairs are like a Valentine kind of thing. I don't have hearts and feature symbols of Valentines and then chairs, you know, like red and white and doilies and that kind of thing, you know. It was just, but yeah, the strange things that didn't seem to fit in and fit on too, you know. It was fun.
Well, in some issues, I put myself in the center of this issue, but I don't always do that.
Oh, she's getting all the sculpture,
Yeah, she's getting it.
all the art.
Not unless it's single normal. But you don't have to.
Yeah. Oh wait, I did see part of that.
There's a few more. Separate before you know all of this. Okay. Yeah,
It's just down the river.
That's right.
That's right.
And I can duplicate.
I married a guy from Chicago, and every time I'd say something, he'd say, "Oh, that made it down the river." It's like, well, maybe it made it up the river. Okay. It started in New Orleans. No, it started in Chicago.
That sounds like a lively town.
Chicago?
New Orleans.
New Orleans. No. Oh my God, here comes the travelogue.
I got it.
Just time to go to the jazz festival. To go to the last week of April, first week of May. Because it's all the music stuff in the town, and it's also spring fiestas. Go see all the homes.
I don't know if I understood. I'm not sure I got the last speech. Do you know anyone who looks like this now?
You get to go in one place.
No, you know what I did?
Well,
It's got hundreds of bands and music playing for 2 or 3 weekends, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. This is the schedule of things. That's a good time to go to New Orleans.
right, yeah, that's the last one. So I can get back and speak.
End of April, the Jazz and Heritage Festival.
Or roots. And it depends on what part of the country.
So it's on the 10th.
Next
My
week.
grandparents always
Next
said.
Yeah, next week.
Let's
Yeah,
do it next
good.
Oh, he said about?
I'm into it.
Close
Luke's
up.
gonna get a good one of you.
Whisper
Eye to eye.
solipsism in his ear.
Yeah,
Eye to eye.
you won't be the first.
Miss Annie,
Your mother's sister was
sweet as a Russian River dry skill.
Are you going to edit this, Anna?
pretentious.
Oh, she's.
Is this going to be edited or is it cinema verite? Or I guess it could be edited.
Well, I don't think he'll be mistaken for meatloaf again. I'm afraid we can't get him to put weight on.
Really?
No, I think he's got something serious.
Well, they all get really skinny in the summer, though.
And when they get old.
And when they get older.
Yeah.
How old is he?
What is that? I don't know, 14.
One of my girlfriend's cats is 17 now, and the thing weighs about a pound or so.
It's real old for a kid.
I wish Sally came to these shows here at the Johnny
Maybe I can get her to
Otis.
come up next
Yeah.
next week. But the other side of it with her is that she works at 4 o'clock in the morning.
What's she do?
Well, she could stay
She's
up
a
all night.
medical transcriptionist.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like our friend and neighbor Tom Kelly, Megan's father. Are you looking at Steve? Get the moon on Steve's t-shirt.
I think Sally hears most of my lines before I put them down on paper.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, she should come to your reading though.
That's easier for you to say to her.
That's why I say
But,
it. I'll call
but I
her.
will remind her of that fact.
I'll call her.
She might make it. Yeah, that'd be a good idea. Give a little ring.
Oh, that's not
And-
gonna work.
Couple
and
of us
have her
have to
answer.
have understandings about things. For example, I think it would be foolish of me to expect my loving wife to come to lots of poetry readings.
I don't expect my loving wife to even read my poetry.
No, me neither.
Well, why would your wife want to read Spencer's poetry? I read your poetry, Spencer.
Ah, you're right. I don't expect anybody to read my poetry.
Oh, well, then I'll stop.
Huh?
Then I'll stop.
You don't expect it?
I'm just kidding, you know.
Are you talking about my book?
I'm just being...
My book, my poetry? You don't expect anyone to read the book?
Yeah, I'm talking about your
By
book,
David Brown?
David, that's right. That book. The cover is all washed out, so it's like, it's still like...
Oh, if you're a copy, maybe.
My copy, how did the cover get washed out? And I'm like, the poetry isn't washed out, why is the cover washed out?
Well, ask Jeff Young. He chose the colors. They're not all washed out on my
Oh, really?
last
Mine-
5
mine
copies.
Washed out.
Yeah, I've had to banish
Better
the.
washed out than washed up.
I had to banish the white wine for having allowed me to attack it with a corkscrew I stole from a hotel, which I thought would be superior to mine, but I don't think it proved to be not so.
Was you ready to incorporate?
It proved to be inferior to mine. Am I a little too dramatic? I see your face retreating from the rangefinder as I pour the intensity into the lens.
Actually, if you could just make larger movements, I'd appreciate that.
You're kidding.
You're not dramatic enough.
I feel like I must be making huge jerky movements as far as that little camera goes. Aren't I? I know film acting is very, like, small movements.
Yeah, but this is video.
Oh, okay. Big
You're not
video.
supposed to be acting. This is cinema verite, real life.
Big sweeping movements.
Oh, okay.
No acting.
That's how he broke the cork.
It's real.
You have to let it love you.
Show us your soul. Show us your heart and soul.
Yeah.
Your true self.
Actually, Spencer, we got your true self today
know,
with all those
shut up.
qualifications. It
I'm a
was
big
great.
mouth. I'll shut up.
Oh, I missed the cork. Ta-da.
Well, I can do it again.
Reenactment.
Okay, ready?
Reenact.
Dramatization.
Oh, yay!
And then, see, this is what you have to do these days. Safe drinking.
Oh, that's true.
Because of the lead.
Yeah, now we know about that.
Yeah, we know about that. Hey,
Well,
that's
which one
really
is this?
good.
Let me do this. Well,
The lids are leaded.
yeah. Your days are numbered. The Roman Empire died of lead. Lead poisoning, because we know about that here.
Of course, it's also true that the Goths have been drinking a lot of lead, and that's what made them that way, right? Or was it the Visigoths? What is a Visigoth anyway?
The lead-maddened Visigoths. Now, I like this. I just found this wine, and it's quite inexpensive.
Baudelaire? Oh, Beauclair.
You've got yours already?
I got
Good.
Not wine, though. We have to make sure we make that clear.
And Anna, what would you like? You want a little of this?
I'll try some of that.
Okay.
Thank
Then you
you.
can have more if you like it.
That sounds good.
Do you know, one day, getting Spencer up here, which is probably more of a crisis, it went very nicely.
Well, I was in D.C. when Steve was, I think Anna got the message in L.A.
That's right.
and
Everybody
relayed it
called
to me in
DC at one time.
And then I couldn't get you when I first tried to call back, so I called Craig to find out what was up. Which is actually the last time I had a conversation with Craig.
And now he's gone, lost to us.
Oh,
I
yeah.
only just met him.
I just met him. Nice guy.
Yeah. I thought, well, there's someone I know down in Mill Valley. He seems to know what's happening. Now he's gone.
After many years in Oakland.
Well, that's kind of far reach for us.
Spencer, I think it was Spencer who predicted to Craig that he wouldn't be going to a lot of readings anymore after he moved up to Mill
It wasn't a
Valley.
hard prediction to make. He wasn't going to a lot of readings when he was in Oakland, so.
That's true.
There's plenty going on in Seattle. And, of course, if it's some
I don't know if
kind
he's
of-
close to Seattle.
No, but he's not.
actually.
I know.
No.
That's the thing.
Did you meet Lori?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
I
very
met her
sweet.
at
He's closer
at
to
a meeting
Helena,
in San
Montana,
Francisco.
I think. He is to Seattle.
I think. Is
Yeah,
Lori his
he-
wife? Or I
he
met
was-
somebody else
Idaho.
also. Another
Yeah. He's closer to Boise,
woman friend of
Idaho.
his. But yeah, I met Lori in San Francisco.
Is this the Tim? Yeah, it's Timmy.
Is there another one?
Yeah, there's one who looks just like him, only stockier, younger, tougher, tigridia, and female. Marvelous, feminine, and tough, you might say.
With two good ears, huh?
Yeah, that Timmy Tornier.
Timmy
He
Tornier.
overreached himself, I'm afraid.
He's a male.
There must be a Timmy Tornier in Beowulf, I think. Sounds like a Beowulfian name. On Timmy Tornier, great among cats. Scored 4 goals in the first half.
He's long though. He's got a.
He was the great leaper in his youth.
Oh, that.
Oh my God! You I'd take a piece
Oh,
of
the
string
great
out on the
leaper.
lawn, and he soared. And now he's living on his laurels.
Well, that's a good place for a
He's
cat
15 years
of
old?
14.
Yeah.
Oh, that's old too.
So
Why?
I tried to live on my laurels when I was 14 and nobody would have it.
Oops.
Well, they say take those leaves off your head.
People kept trying to smoke them.
They don't roll too good.